Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today we are going to talk about the Restoration period. As I told you before in the last class, we were doing 17th century English literature. Okay, and that period in the history of English literature is very much important, and it is comprised of full-fledged century. Previously we divided it into two periods. First one was the Puritan age and the other one was the age of Dryden, and it is also known as the Restoration period. Okay, my dear students, this is your class of history of English literature. So I hope you are enjoying learning history of English literature with me. This is your lecture number 9. This is the outline of the lecture. Today I'll just give you the briefing of the 18th century literature and what are the different points which are very much important in 18th century English literature, and then the age of Dryden or the Restoration period. So my dear student, whenever I tell you it's Restoration period, so it is age of Dryden. So it doesn't mean like Dryden was the only poet who used to write in that period. There were some other members as well, but he is on the most dominating position at that time, fine, and his writings are very much popular among the masses, fine. So my dear students, here you can see this is the picture of John Dryden, and his period started from 1631. It was ended with his death, that was in 1700. So here you can see Dryden period, it is comprised of 70 years. This is almost 69 or 70 years, fine. So my dear students, his full name was John Dryden. Okay, we'll focus on his writings today, and again I'm telling you here that we are studying the Restoration period. First of all, I'll just introduce the concept of Restoration period, okay, and then we'll relate it to English literature. After the Restoration in 1660, when Charles II came to the throne, there was a complete repudiation of the Puritan ideals and way of living. Previously, as you know, that we divided 17th century into two periods. One was the Puritan age and the other one is the age of Dryden. So here you can see there is Restoration over here in England in 1660, okay, when Charles II came into power. Okay, so there was a complete negation. So repudiation, it means that there was a complete negation of the Puritan ideals and way of living. That is why we have divided it into two periods. Okay, in English literature, the period from 1660 to 1700 is called the period of Restoration because monarchy was restored in England, and Charles II, the son of Charles I, who had been defeated and beheaded, came back to England from his exile in France and became the king. So here, my dear students, you can see when we were talking about Charles I. So Charles II is the son of Charles I, and he was on exile in France, fine. So now he became the king. So here you can see that there is a complete restoration of monarchy in in England at that time when Charles II came into power. So these are the basic concepts which you have to keep in mind. That Charles I, he was thrown to France once, and then in 1660 his son came into power in England, and there was a complete restoration of monarchy in England at that time. That is why this period is known as the Restoration period. So basically this is a restoration of monarchy in England. So my dear student, the point is that in every lecture I tell you, whenever we talk about literature is not something which we can take individually, any individual approach to study literature. The things which are involved in the formulation of literature, those are very much important, like the economical situation of the country, the political situation of that time, or the religious situation, who is the head of the church at that time, okay, because all these factors are very much important in the formulation of thinking, and ultimately all these factors, they play their roles in the formulation of literature as well, fine. So dear students, here you just have to keep in mind one thing, there is a complete restoration of monarchy in England. Just keep this in your mind, whenever somebody asks you what do we mean by restoration in England, so you just have to answer him or her that in 1660 when Charles II came into power, fine, so there was a complete restoration of monarchy in England. That is why this period is known as a restoration period. So my dear students, here will talk about the effects of monarchy on English literature, because they were against the Puritan ideals and the way of living. Okay, so these are all the power games as well. Like when one political party or one ruling party they came into power, how they negate the previous ideas and the previous ideologies. So you just have to keep in mind this thing as far as the restoration period in the history of English literature is concerned. As far as when we talk about restoration literature, so sometimes this is hard to read today. Okay, I'll tell you the reasons why. Works are often political in nature or occasional pieces written for a specific occasion. So literature has a universal element, fine, so it is not specific to one event only. So if you want to make your literature universal, so you need to include the element of universality in your literature. So basically why we do not read restoration period literary works today, because they were particularly about any political occasion, and all the literature is usually political in nature in the restoration period. And you can see like some of the literary works, they are limited to one particular occasion of that time. And at that time writers, they also used to write things for money. Poetry and plays had to meet the taste of the day. So here, my dear students, you can again the element of universality here. If you want to make your literature universal, so you have to add elements from different ages, and that is why like literature, writing any kind of literature, any genre of literature is not a child's play. It's a difficult task, because you have to keep in mind the taste and the mood and the lifestyles of the different people who are living in different centuries, in different eras. So poetry and plays had to meet the taste of the day. We do not find that taste today. That is why we do not read restoration period literature today. Fine. Writing is very eloquent and intellectual. Quality is not always appreciated today. So although their writing is very intellectual, that is very decent, but when we talk about that literature today, so why don't we appreciate that literature today? Because of the contents. All the content, they are based on any political events or other occasions. That is why we do not find any similarity of those events and occasions today. Here, my dear students, we are talking about Dryden, because he was the most dominating figure of the restoration period. So it is very much important to tell you something about Dryden, about his background and education. Basically, Dryden was the son of the moderate Puritan country gentleman of moderate means. Okay, dear students, here you can see that for the first time he attended the Westminster School, and then Trinity College, Cambridge, fine, and then he stayed at this college for 3 years after graduation, but did not earn a higher degree. So basically he earned his experience from there, and he didn't get the higher degree from there after the school. Okay, so that is about his education and the background. Early works plus politics. His first important poem was Heroic Stanzas, that was written in 1659 to commemorate Cromwell. So basically this is his first poem. Okay, the name of the poem you can note down here is the Heroic Stanzas, and that was written in 1659. Okay, another work that was done by Dryden was Astraea Redux, and that was written right after 1 year of Heroic Stanzas in honor of the restoration. So basically he was in favor of restoration a lot, so he wrote this book. Okay, for the rest of his life he was loyal to Charles and James, so he was a very loyal kind of person. So you can say here that for the rest of his life he was obedient to Charles and James. So here previously when we were talking about the Restoration period in England, when Charles II came into power, okay, in 1660. So my dear students, here you can see like at that time Dryden wrote his book, that was Astrea Redux in 1660. Okay, so for rest of his life he was obedient to the king of that time. He was a very important literary figure of the Restoration period, because he was very much aware of the religious, political, philosophical and artistic trends that were swirling about him, and he wrote about them. So basically his writings are a combination of religious and political and philosophical, and they are having artistic trends as well. That is why he is very much famous. His occasional poems and Astrea Redux and Annus Mirabilis, which he published in 1667, are his greatest examples of this. So in these two poems you can see the religious, the political, the philosophical and the artistic taste of Dryden in these poems. First great honor. In 1662 he was elected to the Royal Society, England's National Academy of Science, founded by King Charles II in 1660. So here you can see like how Dryden, he participated in the political activities of England at that time, and he was elected to the Royal Society. Basically the National Academy of Science was founded by King Charles II in 1660, and Dryden, he was elected to the Royal Society in 1662. Marriage, and that's another important factor, because here you can see like Dryden was not just limited to one domain of life. Fine, he was a kind of he has a very diverse and a dynamic personality. Fine. So he got married with a lady, and the name of the lady was Lady Elizabeth Howard in 1663. Okay, the sister of his patron, the poet and courtier Sir Robert Howard. So she was the sister of his patron. He and Sir Robert wrote the play The Indian Queen together in 1664. So my dear students, here you can see he got married in 1663 and her wife was a sister of his patron, and they both write a play The Indian Queen in 1664. By marrying a lady, he married above his station. So my dear students, here you can see like he didn't when he got married with that lady, he married above his station as well. So above his station means that the people who belong to the higher rank or the higher class of society. His election to the Royal Society helped make the marriage possible. So basically previously he was not that much as I told you that his father belonged to the Puritan society. So here his election, just because of his wife was from the high class society, so his election to the Royal Society only helped him to get married with that lady. Okay, so playwright between 1664 to 81, mainly a playwright. So previously, so during this period you can see like from 1664 to 81 he was a playwright. Openly wrote to please people and make money. Previously, as we were talking about the trends in the Restoration period, poets and the writers, they used to produce their work for money purposes as well, to get some money. So basically at the start of his career, he started writing the plays in order to please people, in order to entertain people and to get money. Okay, in this respect he was very much like a screenplay writer today. Okay, so just because of that reason he is like a screenplay writer today, who writes for television or for film, just because to entertain people of the society. Heroic plays. Okay, my dear students, another form of writing, previously as we were talking about that he used to write plays for television. Okay, and he was a screenplay writer as well. So here, dear students, you can see that he used to write heroic plays, okay, for screen. Usually wrote rhymed heroic plays, okay, the taste in the early part of the Restoration. So here, previously, at the start of the Restoration period, people, they were very much interested in, watching these kind of plays at that time. Feature incredibly noble heroes and heroines who face impossible choices between love and honor or duty. So here, dear students, that was basically the theme of those heroic plays which he used to write, okay. All for Love, this was his first heroic play, and that was written in 1667. So here, my dear students, say this is the reworking of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra in blank verse and adapted to the unities of time, place and action. So my dear students, here you can see the effect of the Elizabethan age on the 17th century literature as well, especially on Dryden's writing. He wrote this play in blank verse and adapted the unities of time, place and action like Shakespeare did in his play Antony and Cleopatra. So here you can see the link of two different ages. One is that of Elizabethan age or the age of Shakespeare, and here we are talking about the Restoration age or the age of Dryden. So here, my dear students, you have to find out the links of different ages together on one point, okay. He is also known as the father of English criticism, okay. He studied the great playwrights, okay, who were those those who used to write plays in Greece, in Rome, during the Renaissance period, and French contemporaries as well. So that is why he is a good playwright, plus he was very much famous for English criticism. Okay, so as I told you that he used to study, Greece, Rome, Renaissance and French contemporaries. That is why he had a very broad experience of looking at different societies and analyze the people and the literature of that society, and that is a clear-cut reflection on his literature, okay. So sound theoretical principles on which to construct new drama. So basically he took concepts from different playwrights, and then with the passage of time he adopted the things, and he construct a new tradition of making drama or of writing drama. Formal was satire. So here, my dear students, satire, as I told you before as well, something like when you criticize any society, any particular group of people, so that is known as satire. So basically, maybe you're saying something positive, but if you go for the hidden meaning of that thing, that would be negative. So that is known as satire. Between 1678 to 81, at his height. So here, formal was satire was on its peak between this period, okay. Mock epic satire, okay, and the mock epic, the work which is very much famous, that is Macflecknoe, and that was written in 1678, and with this work he started his career of writing formal was satire. Basically that was written in the mock epic, and in that play he was satirizing the playwright Thomas Shadwell, okay. So here, my dear students, you can see this is his work, and this is a satirical work as well, and in this one he criticized a playwright. The name of the playwright was Thomas Shadwell, okay. Absalom and Achitophel he wrote in 1681, okay, and then the Medal in 1682, a poem written in response to Shaftesbury getting off on the charges of treason. So that was basically a response to it, fine. So my dear students, here you will have to focus on three works which are written by Dryden. One is Macflecknoe, and the other one is Absalom and Achitophel, and then the Medal. Religio Laici, that was published in 1682. Title means a layman's religion. As I told you that the Restoration writers, they are very much against the Puritan ideals. So this basically here he focused on a layman's religion. Examines the grounds of the religious faith. So again you can see that here, as I told you, that he focused on the political, artistic and religious trends of the society. So here basically in this walk he focused on the grounds of the religious faith. and defended the middle way of the Anglican Church against deism and Catholicism. Fine. So here, my dear students, you can say that he was very much against the church practices, and he was against deism and Catholicism. So I'll tell you in detail what do you mean by all these terminologies. Fine. Deism, first of all, this might be a new term for you. Like, what do you mean by deism? A philosophy, not really a religion. So basically this is not a name of the religion, it's just a philosophy, okay? Often is called a natural religion. So basically that is not restricted to one particular religion, it's a natural religion and everybody possesses this religion. So to find a standard and a guide in all the conflicting creeds and doctrines of the 17th century. So basically he was trying to find out the standards from the doctrines of the 17th century, okay, society. So basically his focus was, while writing his works, his focus was on deism, and he was against Catholicism as well, okay. What is deist? So this is from the word deism. What is deist? One who believes in the existence of a god or supreme being, but denies revealed religion, basing his belief on the light of nature and reason. So this is a definition by Webster. Fine. So my dear students, here you can see like deist from the word deist word is from the word deism. This is a person basically who believes in the existence of God, that there is God who is controlling the whole universe, but basically he denies all the religion, and he just focused on nature and reason, okay. So this is the definition of deist or deism. Previously we were talking about deism, that this is not a religion, this is a philosophy, that there is a God who is working behind all the forces, but the deists, they all deny the religion, okay. Lord Herbert of Cherbury, first name of English deism. Basically he was the first person who who was under that philosophy deism, and the name of the person was Lord Herbert of Cherbury, and his period was started from 1583 to 1648. Basically he codified the philosophy of deism. So he was the first person who introduced this philosophy in the English society of that time during the 17th century. Original 5 core beliefs of deism at that time: a belief in the existence of the deity. Deity basically, again I'm telling you, referring back to the previous definition, a deist is a person who basically believes that there is a God, but who does not believe on the religions in the society. Fine. So a belief in the existence of the deity, the obligation to reverence such a power, okay, the identification of worship with practical morality. So basically they do not follow, in deism people do not follow any religion, okay. The obligation to repent of sin and to abandon it, and divine recompense in this world and the next. So here, my dear students, you can say that these are the 5 core principles of deism. That is the name of the philosophy, and that is not a religion, okay. It is very much important to know about deism and with reference to Christianity, what are basically the differences and what are the similarities in deism and Christianity, okay. So as I told you that that's the name of the philosophy, and deist is a person who basically believes on the existence of God, but who does not believe on the religion, okay. 5 articles constitute the nucleus of all religions and of Christianity in its primitive, uncorrupted form. So basically in 5 articles you can find out the uncorrupted form of religion and its primitive form as well of Christianity, okay. The variations between positive religions are explained as due partly. So basically all the positive religions, in this work, the 5 articles, you can see the variations between positive religions, okay, are explained, okay. To the allegorization of nature, partly to self-deception, the workings of imagination and priestly guile. So my dear students, here you can see deism, what are the differences between deism and Christianity. So basically in this work, 5 articles, you can find out the differences between Christianity and deism, and here you can see the form of primitive and uncorrupted form of Christianity in this work. Fine. Other deist influence, particularly evident in the writings of the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. So, if you want to check the influence of deism or deist writers on literature, so definitely you'll have to read out the works which are written by the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. Interest in science and maths during this part of the century and the reaction against the harsh religious wars of the earlier part of the century made deism appealing to men of reason as they thought of themselves. So my dear students, here you can say that they were very much inclined towards science and mathematics during this part of the century, that is the later part of the century that was started after 1660 with the Restoration period. Fine. So my dear students, here you can see that that was basically appeal of men of reason of that time. Okay, as they thought of themselves, like people, they were thinking that they all are men of reason, they have logic and they do not, believe on imagination or in the fantasy world. Okay, so my dear students, here you can say that was basically a war, like when we were talking about the Protestant church in the Puritan age. So my dear students, here you can see like this is just because of the shift of one domain of Christianity to another, and we gave it this name, the Restoration period. And the other political factors which are also involved, the monarchy was being restored in England during that period, and then the religious factors. Okay, like Protestant, when the head of the church was a Protestant king, so you could see at that time that the Catholics, they were not allowed to perform their religious duties, okay, in the church. Why? Just because of the ruling party, of the ruling kid. So here basically this is against the harsh religious wars, okay, harsh religious wars between different religion of that time. Deism is a reaction against all those religious wars. Dryden's religion, basically this is a question, like we have talked about deism and what was basically Dryden's religion. Anglican during most of his adult life. Fine. In 1686, Dryden and his two sons converted to Roman Catholicism. So here previously they were Anglican, and in 1686 he and his son, they were converted to Roman Catholicism. Okay, political enemies and literary revivers said he was being an opportunist and converting to the religion of the king. Most of the people of that time, those who are his political enemies and literary rivals as well, they used to say that he was an opportunist and he was converted to the religion of the king. Okay, and basically Charles II, he belonged to Roman Catholicism. That is why, just because of him, that's not something which is based on facts, but it was a thing which his political and literary rivals, they used to say. Okay, just because of the king, and in order to find the good opportunities in life or to avail those opportunities, he converted himself into his religion, that is of his king of that time. Okay, he remains faithful, still he remains faithful. Okay, he remained a Roman Catholic after James was overthrown. So basically after James, he was a Roman Catholic as well. So when he was overthrown, Dryden, he still remained a Roman Catholic. Okay, he didn't change his religion after that time. Lost his official possessions under William and Mary in 1688, as well as all of his stipends. So here you can see like the effect of the ruling parties, like how do you get benefit from one party, one political party. So basically when James, he was overthrown, like William and Mary, they came into power in 1688, and he lost all his official possessions. Dryden lost all his official possessions and his stipends as well. The Hen and the Panther, that was written in 1687, that is basically a debate between the pure white hen, Roman Catholic faith, and the spotted panther, Anglican church. So basically that is again a writing which is based on the religious wars that was between Roman Catholic and the Anglican church. Previously, now basically he is the Roman Catholic. You just have to keep in mind the history here. Previously he was an Anglican, he belonged to Anglican church, and now he has a Roman Catholic faith. So basically this walk, the hen and the panther. that was written in 1687, that was based on the the religious wars that was between Roman Catholic faith and the Anglican Church. So basically previously he belonged to Anglican Church and now he is in Roman Catholic Church. So you can see this book is based on his experiences relevant to both the religions. So again you can see the religious theme that is present in the Hind and the Panther as well. Fine. Need for money. After the 1688 revolution, here you can see that William and Mary, they came into power in 1688, so he might be facing some kind of financial problems at that time. After the 1688 revolution, Dryden had to work hard for money until the end of his life, as was the situation for many writers of that time. Okay, so here dear students, you can see like when there was a revolution in 1688 and Mary and William, they came into power. So at that time, like, he faced the financial problem. That is why he had to work hard for money, and he had to go with that struggle till the end of his life. And that was a very common trend of that time. Like people, they used to write things for money purposes, to get money. Okay, to earn his keep, he resumed writing plays and started being translations of literature. So basically he for a time being, he stopped writing plays. Previously he was a playwright, and now he stopped writing plays and he started doing translations of literature. Okay, basically he had a broader experience of analyzing Greece and other dramatists. So basically now that this is not a difficult task for him to translate any kind of literature into English language. So here you can see, like after 1688 revolution, he has started doing translations of literature of the revolution of 1688. Best known translations, here we are focusing on his translations previously, like poems and other works. Now translations. In 1693 he did translations of Juvenal and Perseus. Fine. In 1697 he published a fine translation of Virgil. Fine. And in 1700, 2 months before his death, he published Fables, Ancient and Modern. So basically all these are the translations in English language. Okay, he translated the works of other writers who wrote their writings in any other language. So he translated, and these are the best known translations as well. He has a long-lasting influence on English literature. Dryden has a long-lasting influence on English literature, especially through his criticism. So here, previously when we were talking about criticism, he is basically known as the father of English criticism. So he has a long-lasting influence on English literature as far as his critical works are concerned. He set the taste and standards in literature for a century. So basically, like in the next century, in the 18th century, people, they used to follow his taste and his standards. Standards were overthrown by the Romantics, who still hold critical sway today. So basically these were the Romantics who rejected his standards. Okay, Neoclassicism, this is another term, when used in a specific literary sense, refers to the theories and practices of most writers from the later part of the 17th century to the 18th century. So basically neoclassical, this period in the history of English literature, it was followed in the 18th century as well. My dear students, here let me just remind you that we are talking about 17th century English literature, and we are focusing on the age of Dryden because he belongs to the later part of the 17th century. So neoclassicism, basically that is like with certain additions, with certain omissions, like writers who used to follow classicism, or classical poets, classical writers of 17th century, and they imitated them in this 18th century as well. So that is known as neoclassicism. Desperate writers, it is very broad description that includes Dryden, Swift, Pope, Addison and Johnson. So these are basically the writers who used to follow that 17th century spirit. Okay, these writers basically they are very much different from each other. So here you can see that there isn't any unity like a age of Dryden or 17th century or 18th century literature. Like usually that is the perception that usually people they used to write in one tone during that particular period. But they all have the different tastes over here, and this is a very broad list as well, and this includes Dryden, Swift, Pope, Addison, and Johnson. Fine. Distinguishing traits: admired restraint, clarity, order, balance, and proportion. So basically these are some of the characteristics of later 17th century literature. Apply the principles of decorum. Basically this decorum is the idea of a rich and elevated language is the appropriate one for writing tragedy, but that a simpler language was used for comedy and other genres that deal with ordinary life. So here you can see like they have categorized language into two broad terms. One is the language which is known as rich and elevated language. They used to write tragedies in this language, and a simpler language, a layman language, and they used to write comedies in this language. So here, my dear students, you can see this principle is known as decorum. Okay, basically this is an idea when you use rich and refined language, an appropriate language as well for tragedies, and informal language, a casual language, simpler language for writing comedy. So here basically you are categorizing language into two fields. One is like for comedy and the other one is for tragedy, and this is basically the essence of decorum. Examples: Dryden as well as Swift and Pope would invert this formula, often using rich elevated language when writing satire. So basically when you are writing something about society and that is based upon satire, so basically they used to use the elevated and the rich language or the refined language, and Dryden, Swift and Pope they used to do it. Examples of this are McFlanknoy, the ladies' dressing room, and the rape of the log. So here, my dear students, say like you have to just keep in mind the concept of decorum when you divide language into two aspects. One is that for the comedy, and the other one is for the tragedy. The formal language you use for writing tragedies, and the informal, casual, or you can simpler language you use in order to write comedy. So basically this is the concept, and famous writers of that era like Dryden, Swift, Pope, they used to write comedies in simpler language, and the tragedies in a more refined and a difficult kind of complex language. Fine. So here you can see like the example of decorum in the works of Macflaney, and in the ladies' dressing room and the rape of the lock. Okay, so these works they are written by first one is written by Dryden, the other one the ladies' dressing room that is by Swift, and the rape of the lock, and it's a very famous work as well, that is written by Pope. Aristotle's unities from the Poetics. So basically they used to follow the Restoration period writers. They used to follow Aristotle unities which are present in his work that is known as the Poetics, later codified by French and Italian writers during the Renaissance. So basically the French and the Italian writers they codified this term unities in the Renaissance period. Okay, basically this term is not as it is present in the Poetics that is written by Aristotle, but it is later on codified by the French and the Italian writers during the Renaissance period. Dryden argues that the unities are important, but good drama is more important. So if one has to bend the rules, it is permissible. So my dear students, here you can see he is not denying that unities are not important, but good drama is more important. So someday I'll tell you something about the unities from Aristotle works Poetics. Fine. So basically his point of view is that the drama is more important than going for the unities, like there must be unity of time, unity of place, unity of event in the drama. Drama is more important than these unities. This is Dryden's point of view. Neoclassicism explained, as I told you, that this is also known as the classical period. okay, in the history of English literature. So my dear students, here you can see like the 18th century writers and the poets, they would also be following the same tradition which was there in the Restoration period. Okay, so dear students, here neoclassics generally regarded man as a limited creature whose understanding was not adequate to an exploration of the infinite. In his essay concerning human, John Locke, so here we are talking about John Locke, and he wrote this essays in 1690, and he focused on the hope that his inquiry into the nature of understanding would lead the busy mind of man to be more cautious and meddling with things exceeding its comprehension. So basically this is your understanding with the nature. If you understand the nature in a good way, so definitely you'll develop your comprehension level as well. Fine. Our business here is not to know all things, but those which concern our conduct. So this is not all about like knowing all the things whatever is present in nature, but the things which are of our concern, of our conduct, we have to we have to understand, we have to comprehend those things only. So this is basically the demand, and this is the core concept of his work, as of his essay concerning human understanding. As the very name also suggests, this is something which is based on the human understanding. Fine. I hope you are getting the things now. This is another definition of neoclassicism: the acceptance of human limitations and this emphasis on conduct, on the behavior proper to men in society. So this is basically code of conduct. Fine. So they do accept the human limitations, like man is not like an animal to do whatever he wants to. He has certain limitation in order to lead a life in the society. So my dear students, here you can see that this is like neoclassicism. We are talking about neoclassicism over here. Like emphasis is on conduct, on the behavior, proper behavior of men in society. Was congenial to an age in which many of the greatest literary productions were satires of human pretension. So basically, usually the writers of that age, they used to criticize the people of that society. Commonly, the enlightened minds of the age believed that the orderly laws of the physical universe, as Newton and other was revealing them. So at that time, Newton and other people, they were also revealing the physical universe at that time. Okay, demonstrated that the beneficent creator existed, and that human affairs were to be directed towards understanding man's position in the physical universe and in the social world. As Pope wrote, this proper study of mankind is man. So basically this is this is basically a connection of the physical along with the social world. Okay, so they do believe on the beneficent creator, fine, who has created this universe, and they also focus on the physical and the social world of human beings. Fine. And as you can see, Pope, the reflection of neoclassicism on Pope's work, which we will be discussing when doing 18th century literature. Okay, the proper study of mankind is man. So basically, if you want to study mankind, so basically the name of the study would be man, the study of man. Fine. Definition 3. For the writers, the proper goal, as the Roman poet Horace has said, to instruct and to delight. So basically the proper goal of a writer, the objective behind writing anything, is to instruct as well as to delight the human beings. Through embellishments of language, the poet was to please his readers and thus lead him to see his character. So basically, as individuals who were yet general representations of humankind. So basically these characters are the general representations of humankind, and the main purpose of writing any literary work is to delight and to instruct people. Delight in a way in order to get rid from the worries of the life, and to instruct them how to live a good life and a happy life. Okay, so basically through characters, this is the writer's task to build up that kind of characters where the reader can build up the image of those characters. Fine. Recognizing in the action of these characters what was virtuous as well as what was foolish, The reader learned presumably to admire the former and avoid the latter. So my dear students, here you can see like the purpose of of a writer of writing any kind of producing any kind of literary work is to embellish the language. Fine. So basically to embellish the language and to create that kind of characters in the minds of the readers where he or she can go into the reality. Fine. So basically that is an admiration of making that characters in reader's mind as well. So basically this is the third definition. Okay. Definition conclusion: to achieve his goal, the poet had to do more than just trust his inspiration. He had to study his craft, particularly as it had been practiced by the great writers of the classical ages of Greece and Rome. For in their works and in the rules that the best critics of the past had devised, he would find reflected those general laws governing man and the world that are the true source of knowledge, in short, nature. So basically the true source for knowledge according to this definition is the nature, and this is from the dictionary Beckinson and Gann's literary terms dictionary. So my dear students, here you can see basically they all focus on nature over here and the reliable source, that is nature, and the general laws that are governing man on the that are governing man on this world. Fine. An essay on dramatic poesy, that is a work that is written by, this is a work, okay, the essay on dramatic poesy, this is a work which is written by Dryden. Okay, here you'll find Socratic dialogues. Okay, we only read a small segment, speakers based on real people. So basically in this work, an essay on dramatic poesy, all the people, they are real. Okay, and this is available in the small segments, and this is based on the Socratic dialogues as well. So my dear students, here we are talking about an essay on dramatic poesy which is written by Dryden. This is another work, right, that is basically written by Sir Robert Howard, Dryden's brother-in-law and fellow playwright as well. Fine. They argued both the use of blank verse in drama. So basically they argued about this thing. Okay, and that was written by Sir Robert Howard. So my dear students, here I'm just telling you the dominating works of one particular era. So we'll talk someday, we'll talk about whenever we need, so we'll talk about these works in detail as well. Fine. Okay. Lacedaemon, that is written by Sir Charles Sedley, another poet playwright associated with court circles. So this is written by another poet. Okay. Neither, this is written by Dryden himself. Okay, and that was written in 1698, and Dryden himself, he wrote it. So my dear students, here you can see like neither, this is written by Dryden himself, and previously when we were talking about the general themes of the later 17th century period, so you have got to know about other writers as well. Dryden on the Puritans. So basically Dryden, he belonged to another group of people, another religion. He changed the religion. Previously he belonged to Anglican, and then he entered in Catholicism. Fine. So here my dear students, like there is a reflection of both the religions on Dryden's personality. Okay. Be it spoken to the honor of English, our our nation can never want in any age such who are able to dispute the empire of wit with any people in the universe. And though the fury of a civil war and power for 20 years together for a barbarous race of men, enemies of all good learning, had buried the muses under the reigns of monarchy, yet with the restoration of our happiness, we see revived poesy lifting up its head and already shaking off the rubbish which lay so heavy on it. So basically he was against the Puritan ideas and the Puritans' way of living and thinking. So basically he is saying, like, as you know, that there was a restoration of monarchy in England. So my dear students, here you can see that he is against the Puritans. Fine. So he is basically saying that everything was, you know, behind the scene, and that was just because of monarchy, that it was not present in England at that time. Okay, so that is his view on the Puritans. Absalom and Achitophel, that is basically an occasional poem linked to the trial of Anthony Ashley Cooper and first Earl of Shaftesbury. Okay, my dear student, this is another work that is written by Dryden. Okay, and that was basically an occasional poem. Okay, that is why at the start of the lecture I told you that we do not understand Dryden's work, because those are based on any particular you know, political event or any occasion. So this is an occasional poem. We can have the example of this one. Okay, Shaftesbury, here we're talking about another literary figure. Okay, who was that person? Previously he was a soldier of Charles I, and he became the parliamentarian under Cromwell. On the Restoration he was pardoned by Charles II. So previously, you know, he was pardoned by Charles II after the Restoration period, became an influential politician, member of Charles' infamous Cable Ministry. So basically Cabal Ministry. Cabal Ministry. So basically this is an introduction to one more writer of you know, Restoration period. The name of the writer is Shaftesbury, and this is his background. Okay, Shaftesbury and politics. Appointed Lord Chancellor in 1672, he was a political figure, no doubt. Did not support James to become king after his brother because of his Catholicism. So here, my dear students, you can see he did not support James, okay, to become king after his big brother. Okay, James after his brother he did not support James just because of his Catholicism. Supported Charles' illegitimate son James, Duke of Monmouth's claim to the throne. So basically here because he was in favor of Charles, so he supported this. Okay, he supported Charles' son. Okay, he was brought to trial for treason in 1681. So here, my dear students, we are talking about Shaftesbury, and this is you know, his political history or political life history. Okay, final flight. Although he was vindicated in his trial, he fell from favor so dramatically that he was forced to flee to the Netherlands in 1682. So he was residing in England, but you know, after his trial he was forced to go to Netherlands in 1682. He died there the next year. So in 1683 he died. Notes on lecture. Shaftesbury relied on brilliant statesman, but his image had been colored by Dryden's diction. So basically he took the same idea that was present in Dryden's poetry. There is no action in the poem. The rebellion is stopped. So for us as reader, the portraits of the people involved are what's important. The poem glamorizes the king. It has to really, and it has to gloss over some of Charles' faults as well. So my dear students, here you can see this is a commentary on his work, that is notes on lecture. Fine. What were the characters in his work? David, that was basically the character of Charles. Absalom, that of the Monmouth. Achitophel, Shaftesbury himself. Enemies, the Whig party. Zimri, George Villiers, Duke of Monmouth. Charles, oldest child and a favorite. He was basically his favorite child. Came to court in 1662, made Duke and married to Anne, Countess of Basilique. Okay, military commands on continent, Captain General. He became Captain General in 1678. So basically he came into court in 1662 and he became the Captain General in 1678. Plot to supplant James. Shaftesbury, among others, tried to get Monmouth made here, tried to have Charles legitimize him, started a rumor campaign that Charles had actually been legally married to Lucy Waters, Monmouth's mother. So basically here you can see, like He in a rumor he announced this, that Charles he married a lady. The name of the lady is Lucy Waters, and he is Monmouth's mother. Okay, Charles always denied this. So it was Charles who always denied this, and he said, no, I didn't get married with that lady. Okay. Banishment in 1679, Charles sent both Monmouth and the Duke of York, his brother James, okay, into exile. So it was Charles. So basically, it was Charles who sent, Monmouth and the Duke of York, his brother James, into exile in 1679. At this point, he was also pretty disgusted with his brother for his obstinate avowal of his Catholic faith. Okay, Charles was having the Catholic religion, so he sent his brother James and Monmouth. He was the Duke of York was his brother, and Monmouth, he sent both of them on exile. Why? Because of not following the Catholic faith. Fine. Popular with the people, Monmouth returned with the king's permission. He came back to Britain again with king's permission, and king was Charles. Forbidden to came to court, so he was just forbidden to came to court because of anti-Catholic sentiment welcomed in London and the western countries. It's fine. So basically this was the point. More plotting. So basically he was very much popular among the people of that. Why? Because Monmouth he returned, पहले मैंने कह दिया था with king's permission, but he returned without king's permission. Monmouth returned without the king's permission, and he forbidden to come to court because of the anti-Catholic sentiment in him. Okay, so at that time in London, it was anti-Catholic movement going on, so he welcomed in London and the western countries. So here, my dear students, you can see like he was just welcomed in London just because of his anti-Catholic spirits. Fine. More plotting. After the arrest of Shaftesbury for treason in 1681, he was heard to speak openly of rebellion. When a plot to assassinate King Charles and the Duke of York was discovered in 1683, and some of the Whig leaders were arrested, Monmouth fled to Holland. So my dear students, here you can say because of the assassination of King Charles and the Duke of York, Monmouth went to Holland at that time. Fine. Here, dear students, you can see like in June 1685, 4 months after James' accession, okay, after James' assassination, Monmouth returned to England and raised a small force. So previously he was sent on exile, by the King Charles. Okay, so now under King James he returned back to England and raised a small force as well over there. At Taunton, he was proclaimed as a king. For a short time, his chances for success looked very promising. So that was just a short period of time that he would become the future king. He would become the future king. Okay, Monmouth. Gentry failed to come to his support, and his army was routed by James' troops. So basically, he was about to become the king of England at that time, but he was routed, he was defeated by James' troops. Monmouth was captured and beheaded in London. So basically he was present over there in London. Okay, he was trying to become the king of the state of that time, but he was defeated by the James troops, and he was arrested. So the biblical allusions, King James' Bible is the one that Dryden would have known, obviously, because there is a reflection of King James' Bible in his writings. Really beautiful language, the kind of language he has used, that was really very beautiful. Okay, the Tories, Crown Party, those who stood for the traditional values of king and country. So basically this is about them. Dryden, Swift, Behan and Manolé are some of the staunch Tory poets. Will discuss this term. Okay, definitely we'll discuss this term before, like who are basically the Tory poets. It's also the party associated with the Anglican and Catholic churches, though members of these faiths could be Whigs. So My dear students, like those who are the members of these faiths, they were known as Whigs, and that was basically a party that is based on a party that was basically a party of Anglican and Catholic churches both. So here, my dear student, you can say during the Restoration period, like the writers of that age and the rulers of that age, they were against the Puritan beliefs. So what happened over there, like in this work, there was a party that was going on, and of that party was of Anglican and Catholic churches both. The Whigs, the thing which the terminology which I told you before, the members of these faiths could be Whigs. So Anglican and Catholic churches, we are talking about these two beliefs over here. Okay, the Dryden belonged to these previously to the Anglican belief, and later on he came towards Catholic Church. Who are basically the Whigs? Parliamentarian parties. So these are basically the parliamentarian parties associated with the outset Puritans, rising mercantile middle class, people who have earned wealth and position through hard work and not birth. That was not just by birth, that is basically through hard work that they got certain kind of position in the society. Though they were members of the peerage who were Whigs, Whigs tended to be less conservative, forward looking, and closer to what we would call liberal today. So basically Whigs, that's the synonym of the liberal today as well. They were not conservative, and they were forward looking as well, and they were modern people. Fine, Whigs. So basically that was their point, that the kings, they get their divine rights from the God. They have a this is a doctrine as well, an ancient doctrine and not the modern one, that kings receive their thrones from God. So basically that is written in their faith, they have to get their throne from the God. So this is a doctrine. Well, this idea goes back as far as the Hebrews. It did not came into prominence in Western civilization until the Middle Ages. So my dear students, here you can see, like we are talking about different civilizations and different ages in the history of English literature. So it is comprised of a long history. It then held sway throughout Europe until the changes wrought by the Enlightenment beginning in the mid-17th century. So basically this is based on a very long history, and that was began in the mid-17th century. Okay. So basically we are going with the previous doctrine, that is the kings, they get their thrones from the God directly, from God directly. King James on the divine rights of king in 1609. The state of monarchy is the supremest thing upon earth, for kings are not only God's lieutenant upon earth and sit upon God's throne, but even by God himself are called God. So here, by my dear students, you can see like King James I is calling all the kings gods, and that is a title that is given by God himself to them. There be three principles simulated that illustrate the state of monarchy, one taken out of the word of God. Basically this monarchy concept is from the word God, okay, because he is the only ruler of the state. So this concept is from the word God. And the two other out of the grounds of policy and philosophy. In the scriptures, kings are called gods, and so their power after a certain relation compared to the divine power. So basically their power is, they are called gods, and their power is known as the divine power, which is inherited, you can say, or which is given by God himself. Okay, my dear students, here you can see like the influence of all the doctrines, all the philosophies, like Catholic Church or the Anglican on the age of Dryden. We have seen it, and the literature that was produced in during the age of Dryden. You can see the clear reflection of all these doctrines on that literature. Then we focused on in today's lecture we focused on Dryden's poetry as well, because he was the most prominent figure of that time. My dear students, here you can see like why we are doing history of English literature, in order to do the comparative study of all the eras or all the periods in the history of English literature. Okay, so in this way you'll develop your critical thinking, and you'll be able to analyze different periods of history. And when you'll analyze any novel, any drama, any poem, so everything would be very easy for you. Not in that way that you'll understand the language, but the concepts which are relevant to one particular genre of literature, you'll be able to understand the hidden powers which are working behind literature, the social, political, economical and the religious factors which are involved in the production of literature. You'll be able to understand it. Today we are over with the age of Dryden, so next time when we will meet, so inshallah we'll talk about 18th century literature. So what I want you to do is just focus on the main points which are relevant to one particular century or one era in the history of English literature, and then you'll be able to draw a comparison of different ages. So today, today's lecture, I took material from A Critical History of English Literature, that is written by David Ditches, and the other book is with the same name, A Critical History of English Literature by Dr. Mullick, and there is a web link available too. So you can get the rest of the information from this web link or the detailed information of today's lecture from these two books. So hope to see you again with the 18th century literature. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.